Hello everyone, it's Sylvia from Fave Tarot. Welcome to my channel. Today we're going to have a look at a really fun VR which is called Mid-Year Tarot Tag, and it's a VR to Chanel from Chanel Days. So Chanel has actually started this tradition with this VR last year, and I did a video last year as well. It was so much fun back then, and hopefully it will be a lot of fun filming it this year as well. What I do find is that I love the possibility to do the same VR after 12 months because it definitely shows me if my taste in tarot in specific, like in this video, has changed and how much has changed. There's also a lot of new decks, and that's really a good possibility or a good opportunity for me to just make a point whether I've been buying a lot of more new decks or if those decks that I bought in the last 12 months have been, how should I put this, really making a mark in my collection. So have I appreciated enough the deck that I bought in the last 12 months, so much so that they actually become some of my favorites in this year? Let's have a look. Okay, so the first prompt is a deck you've used the most so far in 2024. And of course, if you watch my channel for any length of time, you will know that one of the decks that I use more often than any other deck is definitely this one here. It's the Savvy Soul Tarot. I know a lot of you will go, yes, of course, I knew you were going to pick that one. But then again, I have to stick to my guns. I have to be consistent. And to be honest with you guys, I don't even have to force myself or put on some kind of a discipline in order to choose this deck or pick this deck whenever there's a prompt that points to a deck that I use all the time, because it's always here. It's always on my desk. And it's such an amazing deck by Julie Whitelash, the Savvy Soul Tarot. So it was a Kickstarter campaign from, that would have been already almost 2 years ago. I backed the Kickstarter campaign I almost didn't back it. I was alerted to a campaign for a different deck, and so I was checking the recommendation page on Kickstarter. And the deck that I was recommended, I didn't end up backing it because I didn't necessarily like it. It wasn't really calling to me. But at the same time, there was this deck that was just there. And I had a look at the campaign. I read all of the information that Julie provided in the campaign. And I saw a couple of cards, and honestly, I felt like I was really vibing with this deck. I really, really liked what I was seeing and what I was reading. And I thought to myself, you know, I really prefer this deck rather than the one that I was recommended. And so I ended up backing this one. I do not regret one bit my choice. It's been a surprise when it arrived. It's been a wonderful companion to my readings for myself, for clients, for members throughout all of this time. And as I said, it does have a very specific spot in my collection, and it's here right on my desk, because every time I put it back on the shelf, I end up picking it back up. So I just decided I might as well keep it here. It is a wonderful deck, and it's one of those decks that I really believe I will always find a place for it in my heart, because it strikes a chord and it's just absolutely amazing. And the feelings that I have when I use these cards just make me happy, regardless of what the pulls of the cards are. Of course, when it's a difficult kind of reading, I'm not talking about the happiness of what the message from the cards is. I'm talking about the fact that I always feel at home whenever I'm using this deck. And so it's my pick. The next prompt is a new deck that came into your collection. This is super new because I only got this deck a couple of days ago, and I have done a little bit of research on it. So this is the Dirt Gems Oracle. This deck was originally an indie deck, and then it has been picked up mass market, and it's now, I would say, generally quite easy to find. It's available on Amazon. It's available probably also at your local metaphysical bookstore or a general bookstore. I have to say, I am not an expert. I don't really know much about the RP Studio, which is the publishing house that came out with this deck, but I'm very grateful because they made it very available. So the price of this deck originally, it was an indie deck, so it could have been around 70 to 80 Australian dollars. The problem was that if you wanted this deck, you had to get it out of the United States, which obviously would have been a problem because we always had to add the shipping cost to anything that we get from overseas, not just the United States, obviously from everywhere. But unfortunately, the cost from the United States are amongst the highest ones in the world to get them to Australia. Now, this deck comes with, well, the production is amazing, I have to say. It's a very nice wraparound magnetic box. And the book is what really drew me to this deck as well, because I did not have the indie edition. I had no idea, and I still don't, whether the book that comes with the indie edition is also as amazing as this one. But when I actually watched a walkthrough of the mass market edition and I saw someone talking about the book, I don't remember who this person was. I think it was a story on Instagram. I actually made a note to myself to really check it out because it is incredible. We find here, for example, that all of the cards, which is, by the way, it's a very big deck. It's got about 60 odd cards, I believe. And 64, is it 65? Yeah, 65 cards. So for all of us who always prefer to have our Oracle decks with a minimum of 44 cards, we're always happy when it's more than that. 65 is more than enough. We're kind of happy with that. And it's got a lot of information in the book, but it's also because it is very interesting that the creators actually divided the cards into suits. So we have suit number 1, it's a blaze. The second suit is a float. Then we have a drift. And then we had a midst until the end. So it is very interesting because every time we talk about a different suit, and I'm just going to show you briefly. So we also do have a couple of spreads here if you want to try them out. And I'm someone who always tries out the spreads that are recommended by the creators because I believe that, they customize those spreads and it's always something that it's interesting to try, also to see what their intention was when they created those spreads. And sometimes it tells you a lot about the deck as well. So when we look at the page that is introducing the cards, we see suit number 1 is a blaze. So the color red and warm colors, the element is obviously fire, the energetic signature is hot, the weather system is sunny, the metal associated to those cards is gold, the emotion associated is desire, and the landscape is mountain. We also have a little bit of a symbol here. And then he starts talking about all of the cards that belong to that specific suit. Now, there is one thing that I need to say about this deck. It is, as you can imagine, and as you can see from the title here, it's a plant-based oracle. However, if you think, and that's the position I was in before I actually started working with this deck. If you think that when you see a plant you recognize and you, generally speaking, know the uses of that plant, if you think that you're going to see that reflected on the information in the guidebook, think again. Because on the one hand, we do have a reference to the properties of the plants themselves. But on the other hand, we have so much more information that comes from the associations created and thought by the creators. It is very, very interesting. It is not what I expected. When something like that happens, it could go one or two ways. Either I'm not entirely happy with what has been done in the guidebook. I'm not really keen to take on the artist or creator's perspective on the cards, and I end up not enjoying the deck because it creates some sort of a cognitive dissonance between what I usually associate, the keywords that I usually associate with the cards, and the meaning of the cards themselves as laid out by the creator. Or, like it happened in this case, I actually embrace the creator's perspective and I learn so much from it. And this is what happened with this deck. So there's a lot of plants that I know the uses for in this deck, and ironically, almost none of them were mentioning or were pointing out to those users that I'm most, let's say, familiar with. So this is actually giving me so much new knowledge and that different layer of interpretation to the cards that if you watch my channel, you will know that I always appreciate. So thank you. Well done. A fantastic job. It's a really amazing deck. And of course, you know, if you had this deck in the indie edition, I had no idea whether it's worth splurging and reaching out for the mass market one, but I didn't have the indie edition, and so I'm very, very happy that it came out mass market. And here it is. So let me just show you the cards, which are very beautiful when it comes to pretty much everything. There is a lot of symbolism in the cards themselves, not just related to the plant, but also, I believe, that really give you the possibility to dig deeper into the meanings that are then laid out on the guidebook. So as you can see, as I said, lots of symbols. I really, really love the colors associated with the symbols as well. I also like the layout. I love the fact that it's got a black background, which makes me think that it will pair up really nicely with similarly composed decks, such as, for example, the Tarot of the Drowning World, which has black backgrounds. But I also want to try and pair it up with other decks that have a similar kind of art style. So I'm just going to try and do just that, because I believe that when there is such a fun VR, we should take the opportunity to show as many decks as possible. So I'll be right back. Okay, so I've already mentioned that I wanted to try and pair it up with the Tarot of the Drowning World. And that's exactly what I'm going to do. And let's see if it actually works or not. I haven't tried this before, so this is all first impressions, and perhaps it will work, perhaps it won't, it doesn't matter, but I always like to try new stuff. If you watch my channel, you will know that I really bond with a deck when I can actually pair it up with a tarot deck that I like, and I certainly love the Tarot of the Drowning World because of the book, basically. It's got some amazing information in the book as well. So let's just give it a try. As you can see, I really love the fact that it does resonate with the black background. So you will notice that some of the cards from the Oracle decks are not in color, so it's just black and white. These belong to a different suit, so obviously there is a way to differentiate between the suits other than the symbol that you can see here next to the name of the card, or let's say the plant depicted on the card. I think that it does work well together. It's not exactly, obviously not the same artwork, because this is a photographic deck, the Tarot of the Drowning World, whereas obviously this one is not a photographic deck. But I really think it's, I don't know, it's giving me a really good positive vibe using these two together. The colors, when the cards on the Oracle are colored cards, the colors actually do look very similar. And again, the contrast with the black background is creating very, very nice and pleasant results. And so I'm kind of liking this. What do you think? Let me know. Because the second deck I wanted to pair it with is a deck that doesn't have black backgrounds, but it doesn't matter because I believe that it does share the same kind of art style, and it's the Gentle Tarot by Mary in the Sky. So this is, I believe, the first edition. There's a few editions of this deck. There's also a linen edition. There's a mini edition. There's a different edition that has a few kind of alternative cards. And I only have this one, but to be honest with you, I love this deck. It's a very beautiful deck. I use it very, very often in my readings because it is a very strong reader. But it's also a kind deck, as the name would like to suggest. So the Gentle Tarot paired up with the Dirt Gems Oracle, I really do believe that we're looking at a very similar kind of art style. And sometimes because of the presence of black background in the Gentle Tarot as well, we do see these kind of similarities coming out. And I think it really works. And by the way, the cardstock is very similar. I have to say the cardstock in this deck, even though it is a mass market deck, is absolutely gorgeous. I love it. And it's also, as you can see, edged in this kind of, let's say, dull matte kind of gold, which I really appreciate because it's the high quality one. It's the one that doesn't really chip. And the cards did not come stuck one to the other, as is so often happens when we're looking at gloss gold gilding. What do you guys think? I really believe, look at the rainbows in all three cards. That's amazing. I really, really like these two together. I think that we have two possible winners here. But then there was another deck that I thought might pair up really well with this oracle. And let me just grab it because, again, we're probably not looking at the same kind of color palette, but we probably are looking at a very similar kind of art style. And I'm talking about the Blue Earth Tarot by Alison Davis. And let's just have a quick look. So the Blue Earth Tarot is, well, the name says it. It's got a lot of blue. It is a very, how should I put this without, it's not a sad deck. I've heard people, and probably even myself, at the beginning when I started working with this deck, I actually did call it a couple of times a very sad deck. But when I say sad, I don't mean it in a negative way. I just mean that this is, to me, if I could choose, for example, a deck that symbolized one card, this is a Four of Swords for me. So it's got that kind of energy that reminds me a lot of the stillness of the Four of Swords, the necessary peace after a lot of, let's say, heartbreak, because sequentially the Four of Swords comes after the Three of Swords, so we all know what that means. And even though reading the way I do, so I look at number 3 as the number of growth, for example, so I don't always associate it with heartbreak. But I do look at the overwhelm that can happen in the suit of the mind when I look at the Three of Swords. And so the Four of Swords is the kind of the card that points to a necessary break, taking a step back and just resting, because the overwhelm has become so powerful that you cannot go down that same road again. You have to take a moment and you have to recuperate all of the energy that you lost. So I don't know, let me know what you think. I know that the colors are not exactly the same. I do appreciate though that we're looking at very similar kind of art style. And it's also because the Blue Earth Tarot is quite minimalist, as you can see from the minors here. At the same time, it's also very symbolic. So I really like this combo. I like the way these two talk to each other. And ironically, this is exactly the same cardstock again. So we found two decks that have the same cardstock as the Dirt Gems, which is quite a coincidence, but it's a beautiful coincidence at that. So I'm really liking and I'm enjoying these two. Now that I'm looking at these, there's another deck. Sorry if I'm kind of probably going off on a tangent with all of these pairings. It's just that when I have a new deck and I like how the deck reads and the aesthetics of the deck, and also, as I said before, the fact that it gives you so much more information, I also really like to try out a few tarot decks, in this case, that may go well with it. So let's see. So this is the High Tarot by Dan Francis, and I think that because there's a number of cards in this deck that have black and white colors, I'm thinking they can possibly pair up well together. So if you're not familiar with the High Tarot, it's a fantastic deck. The concept of it is called the High Tarot because the hide is the hide spot that people interested in watching wildlife, so birders, for example, they need to hide in order to be able not to disturb the wildlife they're observing. I think that when it comes to the cards that are black and white in the Oracle deck, we definitely have a match, as I can see here. I don't know whether as soon as we encounter a colored card will be also a match or not, but I think it does kind of fit well. And it reads really well as well, because I'm noticing now that my eye is really drawn to the symbol in the cards. Neither one of these two are busy decks. even though there might be cards in the Oracle deck that have a lot of elements, a lot of symbols, but at the same time, it doesn't feel like it's overwhelming at all. Whereas the High Tarot is almost minimalist, I would say. I would think that these two are another winning combo. I really, really love the way they look together. But again, let me know if you use the Dirt Gems Oracle, even if it's the indie edition, let me know which tarot decks you pair it up with. So let's move up to the next prompt, which is the most anticipated deck that was released this year. And I absolutely had to go with the newest Anatorian deck, the Tarot of Echoes. By the way, I got news for you if you like Anna's work. There's also an Oracle deck. I think it's called the Pathway Oracle. I could be wrong, or the Pathwork actually sounds more like the Pathwork Oracle. In any case, the good news is that it's a mass market deck, and it has been, it will be released, let's say, by US Games, perhaps in a month or a couple of months or so. Obviously, in Australia, we'll have to wait by the end of the year, but hopefully they will ship it over. If not, I will have to get it from the US because I want every single one of Anatorian's decks. I absolutely love her work. She is one of my favorite illustrators of all time, regardless when it comes to tarot or oracle or, any other kind of illustration that she does. I absolutely love her work, and I had to go with this deck. So this deck was released I think in February. I seem to remember I ordered it the second she posted the Instagram story that the decks were available for pre-order. I didn't even look at the story. I just switched screen and I pre-ordered it, and I think I was one of the very first people in the world to receive it. She shipped it out very quickly. It came to Australia in about a week and a half after it was shipped out, which I'm so very grateful about. I absolutely love this deck. And also good news about this deck, but you probably know it already. It has been already picked up by a mass market producer or publisher. So we will be able to see it, although I think we will need to wait until probably either the end of this year or the beginning of next year. In any case, I'm quite happy. It will come with a guidebook. I believe that Anna was mentioning that. But I'm very happy. I can wait because for now I have the indie edition, which I absolutely adore. By the way, this one, so it's called the Tarot of Echoes. Anna has also produced an Oracle deck, which is called the Oracle of Echoes. There's a couple of editions. I have the second edition, I think. And that's why this tarot has been called like that, because Anna actually designed it to pair up with the Oracle of Echoes. I have to say though, and I'm not the only one, so I'm just going to put it out there, I don't actually like to pair it with the Oracle of Echoes. I feel, and it's my fault, and the reason why I'm saying that is because I have used the Oracle of Echoes so many times for shadow work that now it feels almost as if it wouldn't pair well with the Tarot of Echoes if I didn't use it for shadow work. And then that's the problem, because I don't feel like the Tarot of Echoes has that particular kind of vibes as to be used for shadow work. I don't know if it makes sense, but in any case, that's the main reason I don't really like to use those two decks together. It doesn't matter because the Oracle of Echoes is absolutely fantastic, and I use it with other tarot decks as well. And when it comes to pairing up with the Tarot of Echoes, honestly, I like it a lot with the Narrative Alchemy Tarot, which I know that it's a tarot deck, but because it's got keywords on the cards, you can actually use it as an oracle deck. And those two together actually pair up really nicely. Going back to this deck, I have to say, Anna did not let me down one bit. I mean, there is so much life, there is so much intense expressions in these characters. It's absolutely fantastic, and she always nails the cards, each and every one of them. So it's not just the majors that are fantastic, it's every single one of the minors and the court cards as well. And I really love this deck and all of the other decks that she made. It's such an amazing opportunity for me to use her artwork this way. I just love it. Tarot of Oracles. So the next prompt is the biggest disappointment, because obviously after the most anticipated deck, we want to learn what deck has been disappointing for us. And it was really fun to watch every single tarot tuber's video that picked up this tag on a VR, because there's different decks. In my case, I have to say that I always fall for it. Every 6 months or so, there is a publisher that comes out with a deck. The titles and the concept and the ideas behind those decks is always really engaging, and I'm always so enthusiastic and I'm always so hopeful. And apart from one exception, I'm always disappointed. And I have to say, unfortunately, I got the latest deck published by, you guessed it, Insight Edition. And I'm kind of disappointed too, because this is the Ghostbusters Tarot. I love the movie. I talked about this movie. I even rewatched it a number of times. I just love the way in which it was breaking all of these patterns of, maybe sci-fi or fantasy or horror in the movies that came out in that decade, in the 80s. I love the fact that there was a lot of humor. I love the fact that all of the actors were really at their peak performance. I also love that there was a documentary called The Making of the Ghostbusters movie, and I watched that recently. I think it was on Netflix, I could be wrong. And I love learning about all of the nitty-gritty stuff that happened behind the scenes of that movie. And so because I love the movie already, everything related to that made me really happy. And so when I saw that Insight Edition was publishing this deck, I was really keeping my fingers crossed and hoping that it would have been, different from all of the other decks that they publish. And I got it, and I was very, very excited. I even filmed the video that I posted a couple of days ago while I was literally just giving you my first impressions. I looked at the book, but then I didn't want to look too deeply at the book because I didn't want to spoil the experience of looking at the cards and getting to know whether they were making the usual peep decks and lazy peep decks in the minors. And so I did everything I could to protect myself and not to spoil the experience. And yet, again, it was a disappointment. And I have to say, it's not like I would stop buying these decks, because if they come out with the Matrix Tarot or John Wick Tarot, please make a John Wick Tarot, please. I will still buy them, and I will still be hopeful, and I will still be disappointed. I hope not, but anyway. So what happens whenever I look at these decks, I love the majors, I always find them actually very interesting. And in my first impression, I was talking about the High Priestess, because this is one of the guardians of Gozer's empire. So Gozer's is the let's say the god of the underworld, the dead, and hell, in a way, in the Mesopotamian mythology. And so there are two guardians, and one of them is this one. They look alike, so they look exactly the same, as you can see. But I love the fact that they chose one of the two as a symbol to the High Priestess, because the High Priestess is definitely the guardian of memory. So I really love to be able to explore that concept. And together with my members, we are still doing a deep study onto the major arcanas and their classes and constellations. And so we are really looking at the meanings thanks to my studies on Mary Kay Greer's books. And so we came to the conclusion that it's very beautiful to look at the High Priestess as the guardian of memory, because by being the guardian of memory, the High Priestess is also very prone to sometimes being taken by mood swings, for example, because she always remembers everything. And by remembering everything, whenever there is something new, she actually knows what's coming next. And I love the fact that we come to the conclusion that thanks to the influences of all of the other cards in the High Priestess constellation, so the influences that she has in other cards, whether it's the major cards or the minors, there's always a necessary balance between the intuition that she seems to embody and the logic that she needs to use, and that is brought by the constellation of the Justice card. So we love doing that study. I love seeing that I can apply those studies to the meaning of the High Priestess by recognizing that this is indeed the guardian of hell. And so I was so very enthusiastic about this deck, and I was going through the majors with trepidation because, of course, they always look nice. I mean, I have to say this: the majors of all of Insight Edition decks are actually really well made. And so, on the one hand, it really does give you the impression that they know what they're doing. And then, you get to the minors and what they do, and it's something that kind of bothers me a little bit, that this is in order, by the way. I didn't shuffle it yet. And so after the judgment, the world card, you're presented with the minors, but they start with the court cards. And the court cards are still okay because they are clearly characters from, in this case, the movie. And then you start with the ace, and the aces are still okay because they do show you, for example, the new object or symbol that they're using when they present the minors. The suit of the minors are actually renamed. So in this case, it's the ace of wands. They haven't renamed the suit of wands, but they present the let's say the jetpack and the guns that they're using in order to trap the ghosts. So the aces are still okay. And then you start with the minors and you go, oh no. And you look at this one and you still want to fool yourself, and you still want to believe that it's going to be okay because this looks like a blueprint and it kind of makes sense. And then you go to number 3 and you're like, yeah, no, I don't know. It still feels like it's a bit of a hit and miss. Some of the cards are fully cynic. Some of the cards can still make sense. There is still this sense of conflict and competition in the Five of Wands. You can still look at, at the cards that follow. For example, the Six of Wands is still okay because perhaps Spengler is the one of the Ghostbusters that is kind of different from the others, and is solving problems, is achieving stuff, and perhaps is, the one that is not the leader, but at the same time is also the one that has the solution for things. So maybe we can see it that way. And then the Seven of Wands could be, sticking to your own guns. So obviously, preparing yourself for the battle. You can still see that. And the Eight of Wands, definitely the speed of the car, absolutely. And then the Nine of Wands, and you think about the fact that they had to go through so much, and that could be a way to interpret to show this in a card. But the Ten of Wands is just, it's just peepish. And then you move to the traps, which are the cups, by the way. And again, it's fine to look at the court cards, and obviously this is actually well done, I think, because it is representing the Ace of Cups. And in the Ace of Cups, you will remember from the traditional symbology in the RWS, you have a cup with overflowing water. So you can kind of see that happening here. And then you go to the Two of Traps, which is the Two of Cups, and this is not really giving me Two of Cups vibes, but I went back to the guidebook and I read about it, and I can still be on board with it. But then, the enthusiasm is gradually fading away. And every time that you look at another card and you're really forcing it, or at least that's what I was trying to do. And then I see another card like this one, which is exactly the same as the Two of Wands, except with, the traps. And you go, yeah, another blueprint perhaps, but why? I mean, if I can associated with the Two of Wands, I don't see the same associated with the Four of Traps, which is the Four of Cups. And yeah, the loss in the Five of Traps, and then the melancholy and the nostalgia of the Six of Traps, perhaps, maybe, with the underground. But the Seven of Traps, I don't see why the choice would be represented by this. And by all means, this looks like the Ten of Wands, except with different symbols. And the Eight of Traps, which is the Eight of Cups, and I don't really see that either. And then we go on, and it's just more of the same. And again, you look at the court cards, and you perk up a little bit again, and the Ace as well. And then the Two of Streams. So streams are actually swords. So that quality of the air. So the Three of Streams, I don't know, the overwhelm, probably, maybe. the forest streams, the stillness, not really. As a matter of fact, this doesn't really give me Four of Swords vibes, and so on and so forth. And I have to be honest with you, I really forced myself to like this deck. And I still do. I still believe that I will keep it, I will use it, and I will cherish using it because I will remember every single moment that reminds me of a scene in the movie. But at the same time, I have to say they could have tried a little harder. And that's what I always end up saying whenever I look at any new deck published by Insight Edition. And please understand, if you love this deck, I don't mean to say anything negative about it. It was my expectations. I set my expectations way too high for this deck. I was really, really excited about it. If I hadn't been that happy and if I hadn't had that sense of, oh my goodness, it's so cool that I made a deck out of that movie. It's going to be a wonderful deck. If I hadn't set my expectations that high, I would not have been so disappointed. But unfortunately, that's the way it panned out. And that's what happened. And so this is, even though I still like this deck, and I was making a comment in the recent video about the fact that I really love the choices for the colors of the cards. I really, really do like them. At the same time, this had to be my pick for the most disappointing deck. But again, it was because I set my expectations high. If I hadn't done that, maybe this would not have been my pick. But so there it is. So the next prompt is the biggest surprise, and I really had to go with this oracle deck, which is the Deeper Self Oracle by Sophie Elvari. Sophie lives in New South Wales, so it's a local Australian artist. I have to say that it was completely, I was browsing through Etsy, it was completely random, and I saw this deck. And I started looking at it, and then when I saw that the cards didn't have any keyword, I thought to myself, that would normally be a deal breaker. Then I felt really cool by the cards, and I was looking at them, and I was thinking to myself, I don't actually need keywords for these images because they resonate so much. And I found that every time that I was looking at an image, I could actually come up with a keyword myself. And I found that this is a deck that works really, really well with any kind of shadow work that you want to do or that is part of your practice. The colors are absolutely amazing. And when I presented this deck, I presented it in a video in which I was showing you some gems, tarot and oracle decks that I had never seen in any kind of social media platform, whether it was YouTube or Instagram or TikTok. And I was thinking to myself, this needs to be out there. It needs to be more popular because it is an amazing deck. And there's another reason why I like this deck so much. And if you watched that video, you will know by now, but it's because it pairs up really, really well with one of my favorite tarot decks. I will show you. So here we go. It's the Bonfire Tarot by Gabby Angus West, who's also let's say a fellow Australian. She also lives in New South Wales, in the northern part of New South Wales. I was lucky enough to get a copy of the indie edition of the Bonfire Tarot, which I have, but I'm not using it because I don't want to ruin it. So I'm still using the mass market edition. This is not the linen edition, which is the most recent one. It's still the previous one with the really glossy cardstock. And I find that because the Deeper Self Oracle also has a shiny gloss cardstock, it actually pairs up much better if you use this deck instead of the other. And you will see that it's kind of amazing how well these two pair up together. It's certainly got to do with the color palette because we still see that there's a black background. But it's also, I believe, when it comes to the colors themselves, other than black, there is so much vibrancy in both of these decks. And there's also, every now and then, the use of really flashy kind of colors like acid green or acid yellow or, neon pink and neon orange. And it is common in both of these decks. The art style is also very similar and it pairs up really, really well. And I have to say, when you do use these two decks together, like for example, every time I use this deck and I see this card, I always think about the inner child. So how the inner child wants to be an innocent self, a self that can still enjoy life. But what happens is that it is within the adult, and the adult is wounded. And so there is this sense of despair that comes out of this card, but at the same time, there is this sense of the wounded self creating a barrier around the inner child, which would love to be in synchrony with all of the colors that are around it. And so we can really work with this deck. I use it so much. I used it for the first time with a client as well, and they really, really appreciated it. And I used it in combination in a reading with the Bonfire Tarot. And I can assure you it's really eloquent. It talks a lot, the pairing itself, but also due to the fact that the Oracle is such an intuitive deck, and I absolutely love it. These two are fantastic together. So I was watching an Instagram story from Sophie's Instagram account, and she mentioned the possibility that she's going to apply a general discount in every item in her Etsy store. So I will link her Etsy store in the description box below, just in case you want to check it out. I do believe that she will ship overseas, so obviously the cost will be different, but I have no idea. And if you want, you can actually reach out to her. She's very responsive, she's very sweet, so she will definitely let you know. But as you can see, I just love these two together. I believe that there is so much, they have so much in common. So this was a wonderful surprise, and I'm so very happy that I got this deck. So the next prompt is called the Deck Crush, a deck you're in love with. And I have to say, there were a couple of decks that I wanted to pick for this prompt, but I had to settle with this one. So this is the Slow Tarot by Lacey Bryant. It is a deck that I got when it was still out of print. I honestly don't know. So it was out of print for a long time. Then it came back in print. Then I think it went sold out. I don't know whether it's still available anymore. It is an indie deck. I feel that I was so lucky when I got it because it was during the time that it was sold out, and so people were asking for a lot of money to get this deck. And so I had no intention of spending $300-400 on it. But then a close friend of mine in the tarot community, she said, look, I was looking into rehoming this deck, and she let me have it for exactly the same price she paid for it, which was very, very sweet. And I absolutely love this deck. I have such a deep crush on this deck. This deck is not just beautiful because objectively the art style is right down my alley. I really love it. It's something that looks very pleasing to me, but it's also because it's a very symbolical deck, as you can see from pretty much all of the cards. And at the same time, it does have a modern take on tarot, or at least on the symbolism of tarot. So it is one of those decks that it is fantastic to use because all of the symbols do remind you of the meaning of the cards. But at the same time, they have this kind of modern take on them. And look at the Four of Coins, for example. Isn't it just absolutely gorgeous? I absolutely love this card. There is still the symbology there because there are these 4 coins, and there is this sense of possession and keeping everything to your chest and trying and consolidate on your profits or on something that you made, on your resources and your skills. But at the same time, the person is actually breaking the fourth wall, looking directly at the tarot reader, at yourself, and almost connecting with you on a different realm and telling you and communicating this sense of unease. There is a sense of unease that comes out of this expression. And it communicates that risk that we always incur whenever we're just staying with our own resources without actually using them. And, and we go from consolidation into stagnation, which is, to me, is a great way to represent the 4 of coins. I love the Death card. I love for example, these 2 of coins. as always, you have that sense of juggling with a couple of whimsical things that it's typical of the Two of Coins, but at the same time, because it's depicted the way it is, it also gives you the idea that you shouldn't be waiting too long because the water is already overflowing from the bathtub. And so I love the way in which this is portrayed and all of the cards are portrayed, and I love everything about it. It's linen, by the way. I see there are things in the tarot community that sometimes I just don't understand. How can this deck not have been picked up mass market? I just don't understand it. Maybe maybe it's the creator that doesn't want to go mass market. Fair enough. But this is one of the decks that I would think that everyone should have in their collection. Obviously, if you don't vibe with the images, it's not for you. But this is one of the decks that I heard most people saying that they absolutely love it, and they were so crushed that it was out of print and hard to find. And then I believe it was back available for a while, and perhaps now it's not. I'm not entirely sure. But this is one of the decks that I would love to see mass market and see other people enjoy because it's absolutely gorgeous. So the next prompt is not about a deck, it's about a card. So it's your favorite tarot card. Now, you guys know that my favorite tarot card is the Star card because it refers to Aquarius, which is my zodiac sign. But what I felt about talking about today is not my favorite card, it's about a stalker card. So if you're not familiar with the term, the stalker card is a card that you keep on pulling for yourself when you do readings for yourself. And it's definitely a card that, statistically speaking, you tend to pull more than others. Sometimes you pull it so often that it might be once every 2 days, or sometimes even 3 times in a row. And so much so that it makes you think, and it makes you think that perhaps this card has a message in store for you other than what the reading of that particular pull was about. So it may come out in a reading, but it almost feels as if it would just be a singled out card in a deck that wants you to focus on that card. And so for me, it was the Four of Swords, which is not the most beautiful card to have as a stalker, but I'll take it over other cards. It could be worse. So the significance of the Four of Swords is very strong for me lately. Ironically enough, I am a member of Lisa Papez's Unicorn Fam, and in one of the readings, I asked her to do a reading for me, the general reading about career and work. And she pulled the Four of Swords as well. And so I was like, oh my goodness. So it's not just that I'm pulling it for myself, it's other people pulling it for me as well. And it's obviously pointing to a stillness. There's always this kind of stillness, and there's always also referring back to my stillness in a personal way. So I'm very tired. I've been sick, not really sick, but kind of under the weather for a couple of months now. And I feel like I've been neglecting myself, and the Four of Swords has become relevant in my life because it's almost as if it were a reminder that I can't keep on putting off taking care of myself. And so I actually decided to do a study in my journaling of the Four of Swords, and I had a look at a number of different decks where I look at the Four of Swords and I try and do some kind of meditation on the card and see which one actually calls me the most. And it's from the Unfolding Path Tarot by Athena Noctua. This is not the indie edition, this is the mass market by Hay House. I absolutely love this deck, and I just wanted to show you these Four of Swords because I believe, it really spoke to me. There are other Four of Swords that I really like, but this one actually really spoke to me. This person, let me just zoom in. Okay, so this person looks very peaceful. So she is keeping her eyes closed, but she's definitely resting. And what I find really emotional and touching for me is the fact that we have the Four Swords, but as opposed to the traditional symbology of the Four Swords just hanging from the ceiling and kind of being threatening, or looking at least like they were threatening the person that is resting, they're actually resting on top of this person, and they look I don't feel like we can talk about a sword and relate it to something that is peaceful, because swords are a symbol of fight and war in many cases. But ironically, this is exactly what I feel. This is exactly the vibe that I feel that this card is actually conveying for me, and that's the sense of peace. So this person has accepted that right now it's not the time for action, it's actually the time for rest, for sleep, or at least to recuperate that sense of energy that she probably lost. And I love the fact that the swords are not threatening to her. As a matter of fact, she's also holding one, but she's not holding the sword as in ready to stand up and fight. She's kind of resting her hand on top of the sword, as if it was something that she accepted. And I just absolutely love it. And I love the fact that there's also a lot of, I think there are roses and other flowers on the bed as well, which is always pointing to something that is still there, that represents life. And I really, really love this card. So this is my pick for my favorite card, which is not my favorite card, but it's a stalker card. And I felt like I wanted to talk about this. And the next prompt is a deck that makes you happy. And if you know me, you know my pick. This is the Desert Illumination Tarot. Let me just zoom out. It's one of the decks that I appreciate the most. This is the first edition. I know that there has been a second edition of this deck with slightly different colors and definitely borderless. And I just prefer this one. Ironically, I am not a border kind of person, but sometimes I feel like the borders actually act as a really nice way to frame the artwork, and this is the case. I love this deck so much. It always makes me happy. And it's not the kind of happy that is like funny happy, but happy as in it makes me feel good. It's one of those decks that has so many references to a world that I love so much, which is the world of the southern states of the United States, in specific of New Mexico, and the kind of culture that you feel in the air when you are in New Mexico. My husband and I did a road trip there a few years ago. We absolutely loved the people, we loved the atmosphere, we love the climate as well, the sense of, the heat that is there. Not just in summer, but actually, ironically, I was looking at temperatures in winter, and it can get really cold in the desert in winter in New Mexico. We love everything about the places we visited. We've been to Las Cruces. We've been to a place which is called White Sands, which is absolutely fantastic. It is just white dunes all over. It's really gorgeous. We've been to Roswell because my husband has a passion for aliens. And once we were there, they actually had the Alien Festival on. So we went to conferences, we went to parades. It was absolutely fantastic. We went obviously to Santa Fe, we went to Albuquerque. We just loved everything about it. There's Georgia here, a fantastic painter. Georgia O'Keeffe is a fantastic painter native from New Mexico. I really enjoyed the food. I enjoyed everything about it. And there's also, there's the turquoise road where, but not anymore. At least once we were there, we couldn't really find, even though we were driving down the turquoise road, we couldn't really find that many shops that were selling turquoise. I guess it's because it's not sustainable, and you really need to be careful when it comes to these kind of commerce, because sometimes there's also a lot of fake that have been sold. We just loved everything about our stay. We stayed there for 2-3 weeks. So it was absolutely amazing. And it's not just that this deck is making me happy because it reminds me of that trip, but it's also because, look, the Judgment card is a cow that is being abducted by a flying saucer. And so I just absolutely love this card. I think it's wonderful. And as I said, yes, it is whimsical. Of course it is. But it's not the kind of deck that makes me happy because it makes me laugh. I mean, there's another one, the Zombie Tarot, for example, makes me laugh, or the Housewives Tarot makes me laugh. There's other tarot decks that actually makes me laugh, but this one makes me happy because it's not just whimsical, but it's actually really beautiful. And I have so many memories, that come to me whenever I look at these cards. So this is definitely the Desert Illuminations Tarot, which is also coming out mass market, by the way. So the next prompt is the most beautiful deck this year. I struggle to find a just one deck for this prompt because there are so many beautiful decks out there. And I think that especially in the last couple of years, we've been really spoiled with indie decks, but also with mass market decks that are absolutely amazing. And so it was very difficult to narrow it down to just one deck, but I had to go with this deck. So this is the Remembering the Sweet Fool Tarot by Trisha Murray. And you probably know Trisha from other decks as well. And they always come with a very long title, The Forest of the Precious Twigs, for example, or there's one called The Wandering Star. Sorry, I actually don't remember the name of the other deck. I will make sure to put the link to her Etsy shop in the description box below, just in case you want to check it out for yourself or you want to buy it. This is an amazing deck. It was a Kickstarter campaign that I missed out on, unfortunately, last year. Ever since I've seen this deck in many other YouTube channels, Annette from a Project Refined Life really loves this deck. And I've just fell in love with it. I really felt like I needed this deck in my collection. This is a very it's a complex deck when it comes to describing the art style. I would say that primarily it is a photographic deck, as you can see, but there's a lot of work in these cards as well. There's a lot of probably a stacking technique, what we used to call the sandwich technique, which is very similar to an oracle deck that I love to pair up with this deck, which is the Death Dura Oracle. That has the same kind of technique. But I absolutely love the way in which there are spotlights used to illuminate some symbols in the cards and not everywhere. For example, you can see it here. I just really enjoy looking at this deck, but I also find that it's a very, very deep kind of deck. As you can imagine by looking at the cards, I mean, it does seem to be pointing to a very deep kind of work. And so I love it. I absolutely love it. I use it with the Death Doula Oracle. I use it with the Crystal Grid Oracle. That works really, really well for some kind of an elemental kind of take on this deck. Personally, I know that it could also qualify as some kind of a abstract, I guess, kind of deck. I guess you could call it an abstract kind of deck, even though obviously you see the photo. Sometimes it's easier to understand what's going on in the card rather than in other cards. But I do still call it an abstract deck. But I don't mind because abstract decks are part of my collection. I love some of them. And I think that we don't really have a definition of what an abstract tarot deck is strong enough to be able to categorize the decks that way. It's just the feel of the deck. I absolutely adore it. It's really beautiful, and I mean aesthetically beautiful. You guys know that I love photography, so obviously other decks that were trying to get picked for this prompt were also photographic decks, but I had to settle on this one because I absolutely love it. And this is the Remembering the Sweet Fool Tarot. So the next prompt is, what deck do you want by the end of the year or are still waiting on? And it has to be, even for this one, as I said, we're being spoiled for choice because of the so many really beautiful decks that came out on Kickstarter campaigns, but also the future decks that will come out mass market. I have to say there is a pipeline that looks really, really interesting from Los Scarabeo decks, one yokai-based tarot from Los Scarabeo that looks absolutely gorgeous. There's another Fabio Listrani deck that is coming out from Los Scarabeo. Fabio Listrani is the author, for example, of the Santa Muerte Tarot, and it looks like it's very similar in vibes and themes, so I'm very excited about that one. And then there's a few US games decks that will eventually come to Australia whenever they decide that it's time for us poor Australians to get a hold of those decks. And then, more decks from other publishers, so very, very excited about that. But if I have to pick one I am most excited about, it definitely is Lisa Peps's deck, which is the Unicorn's Journey Tarot. It's a Kickstarter campaign that has concluded. It was fully funded and then some. I think it went up to 400% of the funding goal, which is amazing because there's so many stretch goals that have been unlocked. So we're going to get, if you're a backer, you're going to get so many goodies and I can't wait. And it's going to be really, really exciting. So that's my pick. The next prompt is, which deck hasn't been used yet, but you want to work with it this year? And I had to go with this one. And by the way, look at how beautiful this bag is. This has been made by the Tarot Bag Ladies. They are from Queensland, but they also ship overseas. I absolutely love all of the bags. I am a fan, and I'm slowly getting even more because I just absolutely love them. This is perfect to the size, by the way. And the deck is Brian Froud's the Heart of the Fairy Oracle. So this is not, there's two fairy oracles by Brian Froud. This is the one that he actually created together with Randy Froud. And it's the one that is very difficult. It's out of print. It has these backs and it's very difficult to find, but I was very lucky to find it for a very reasonable price in one of the Facebook trading group that I'm part of. I really enjoy this deck. I have to say, the images are very, very beautiful. I have both the fairy-related decks by Brian Froud. So the other one is the Faeries Oracle, just a simple Fairies Oracle. That one is very easy to find. It's available on Amazon, probably also at your bookstore. But I have to say, it's a bit of a mix of what my interest is in. So I love this deck and I do prefer this deck to the Fairies Oracle deck. However, I do prefer the Fairies Oracle guidebook to the guidebook that came with this deck, which makes things a bit confusing. But I have to say the guidebook that comes with this book is fantastic as well, but I just prefer the other one. These images are amazing. I absolutely love them. I originally got this deck and a Fairies Oracle to pair them up with one of my favorite decks for this year, which is the Sister Witch Tarot by Julia Jeffrey. And I find that it's really appealing to that fairy-like or alien-like side of the Witch Sister Tarot. There is so much intensity in the expressions of all of these characters, and these characters really have no shame in looking at you, inviting you in, engaging a kind of conversation with you. There is a lot of direct talk and sometimes also talk back, if you know what I mean, because if you started using this deck, you will know that it doesn't shy away from even slapping you in the face. Let's put it this way. It's not the slap in the face that comes from, for example, the Barbara Walker Tarot. That is almost, I don't know, that feels like it's a horror movie. Seriously, that deck. It's not like that. This is more like the slap in the face that comes as a reckoning. But it's independent in the sense that this deck goes on living whether you use it or not. And I found that I actually haven't worked enough with this deck as I want to. So it's definitely my pipeline when I look at the decks that I really want to get to work with for the second part of this year. So this is the Heart of the Fairies Oracle by Brian Froud. And last but not least, the last prompt is favorite video you've made. So there's a couple of videos I wanted to talk about. One is a hashtag that was picked up a number of times by other tarot tubers, and that always makes me so happy because I love to see your choices, your prompts, etc. And this one was called Decks That I Can't Put Down. And then I posted another video and I called it Decks That I Can't Pick Up. So basically the concept behind decks that I can't put down was about decks that I can't put down because I use them so much and I love them so much. And decks that I can't pick up, in opposition to decks that I can't put down, refers to decks that I really want to pick up, but I cannot because I didn't necessarily vibe with them, but especially because I didn't really find a space or the right space in my practice for them. And so I was actually asking the tarot community to come through for me and let me know in the comments if you had one of those decks, to let me know how you use it and how you like to use it. And you all came through for me. I was flooded with messages of people saying you could try doing this with that deck and you could try doing that. And it was absolutely amazing. I just love it. And I have to say, I'm here for it because I absolutely love being in touch with the tarot community. And then there was another video that this one was actually filmed for my members. And I really, really loved it because it's part of my videos where we're trying to read like a professional. So we're looking at the cards and we're looking at sequence or reading sequences or the sequential method of reading cards. So understanding that, for example, let me just pick a deck because I want to show you. So you, for example, you want to know, for example, you focus on the Temperance card, and the Temperance card talks to you about time, but it talks to you about communication. It also talks to you about healing. So what you do is you just go through the deck this way, and you find the Temperance card, which ironically is very close by. So I'm actually happy that it is. And you basically identify a way to read the card that, the card that comes before the card you're focusing on. So in this case, the Temperance card. And in this case, it is the Tower card and a card that comes after. So by focusing on the Temperance card, we also focus on the alchemical energy of the card itself, and the alchemical energy of the Temperance card in specific because of the element of water, but also the element of healing and the element of time that is associated to the movement between on the water between the two cups, is an alchemy of reconciliation. So what we do, we look at the card that comes before the Temperance card and the card that comes after, and we try and understand how we want to reconcile these two. So how do we reconcile the sense of loss and disaster and catastrophic consequences of the Tower card? So it's something that has been completely wiped out. So how do we reconcile that with the energy of the Knight of Pentacles, which has a very strong, resourceful kind of energy? It's a very earthy kind of energy. And that tells you how to read this. So right now, you might be in a situation in which everything has fallen apart because it didn't have any kind of strong foundation. So whatever is being wiped out in the moment of the Tower card is something that was not strong enough. It's the house you build with sand. Just the first gust of wind will definitely throw it out. So how do we reconcile the fact that we didn't have enough of a foundation to go on in our pursuit? We reconcile that by adding that kind of resourcefulness that the Knight of Coins or Pentacles represents. And so this was throughout all of the majors. We were looking at the alchemical meaning and the energy of the majors, and that we were reading them by asking yourself questions. And basically it was a customized spread for all of the cards that came before the card you were focusing on and the cards that came after. So that was an amazing video. I got plenty of questions from my members. It was a really nice discussion and I really, really loved it. And so we are continuing on, and we're doing, as I was saying before, after talking about the alchemical energies of the majors, now we're talking about the clusters and constellations related to the majors, which is also so much fun. So that was the last prompt. And I have to say it was a fantastic opportunity for me to do a fun VR and also show you my decks and be in your company, which is always appreciated. So thank you so much for being with me till the end of this video. More to come. Have a great day.